The Toronto Blue Jays are getting healthy and the bats are finally coming alive. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 128 of Buds and Blue Jays. This is your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm Jesse Burrell, joined as always by my co-host Riley McConnell. And today on our show, we've got a good one. Our Toronto Blue Jays march into Cincinnati after losing the series opener. We come back nicely and take 2 out of 3 against a good Cincinnati Reds team. We'll have all the major storylines coming out of this series, including Dalton Varsho heating up, Paul DeJong being DFA'd, and so much more coming in this episode. But first, Riley, I want to start this episode here today with a true or false statement. True or false, Riley? The Toronto Blue Jays are going to be a playoff team in 2023.
True. We're going to get the third wildcard spot. That's my answer at this point. That's my answer right now.
It's tough because as the things stand right now, we are still half a game out. We are not in there. I would say on talent alone, we are a better team than the Seattle Mariners, and we have a better strength of schedule left than the Seattle Mariners. But we're not in it right now, and there's only 6 weeks to go, and this Blue Jays team still hasn't hit his stride. I'm with you. I think it's going to happen, but I'm still not certain about it.
Jesse, there is no certainty in baseball. There's no certainty with this year, with this team, although on paper it should be more certain. We've played a fantastic group of teams this year. We've lost games we should have won, and we've lost games against guys that are competing with us and against us. So, I mean, hey, for us, this is a series that we could have taken the sweep. I thought that the starter for the Reds in game 1 was fantastic. I thought all our pitching was great, but hey, a 1-0 game, a rookie hits a walk-off home run. I mean, hey, hats off to the Cincinnati Reds. They have a fantastic group of young players. Extremely exciting series to watch. Very exciting baseball, man. I'm glad that we came out of there. We should feel good after 10 runs, and we should be reflecting on our off day today because we got a big series to play. But pack your things after this series with the same mentality you had, boys, after the third game, scoring double digits.
Yes, Baltimore Orioles. The Blue Jays are making a trip there next, going to Camden Yards. So the Blue Jays will have to keep playing well. I'm getting nervous watching all these Seattle Mariners games and hoping for them to lose. But we'll get onto that a little later. This is episode 128 of Buds and Blue Jays. So before we get into the main series, we're going to do what we've been doing all season long, and we're giving you some fun Blue Jay stats with the episode number correlating to it. This is episode 128, and Riley, I thought this was a fun one. 128 is the career number of times that Carlos Delgado was intentionally walked in his Blue Jays career, which is a franchise record. No Blue Jay has been walked intentionally more than 128 times. And then the next two are about Jim Clancy, Riley, who you might know from the 1980s pitching for the Blue Jays. It's the number of wins he had with the team, and it's also the number of walks he had in a season, which is 1980, which is his franchise record. So for the next two, Riley, which is number 128 in career hitter war and 128 in career pitching war, I want you to try to guess. And a little hint for the viewers at home who are trying to guess it, both these players are Canadian. So that's going to be a little fun one. The hitter one, Riley, might be a little easier. He played from the Jays from 2007 and 2008. He was mostly a designated hitter, played a little bit of left and right field as well, though. What is your guess? I can give you more hints.
Oh, man, this is a too easy one. This is New Brunswick's Matt Stairs for
Matt
sure.
Stairs, bingo, yep. My next clue would have been he had a massive home run for the Phillies in the NLCS as well. This one might be a little tougher, Riley. 128 in pitcher war. I didn't really know who this guy was. He pitched from the Jays from 94 through 97. He was mostly a middle reliever. I think he made maybe 4 starts as a Toronto Blue Jay. He came back for a second stint in 1990. 6'3" left-hander.
Oh,
yeah, it
wow.
might be tough.
And a Canadian guy, and it's relief pitcher, not named Paul Quantrill. Like I honestly couldn't tell you. A lefty relief pitcher that's Canadian, man. I'd love to hear the answer though. Maybe I've heard this name.
Paul Spoljaric was his name.
128
career war,
yeah. Yep. It makes. Hey, I played a lot of out of the park baseball. And that's a name right there. Paul Spoljaric. Yep, I do know that name, but I would not have guessed that.
We're deep into the woods here, 128 of pitcher war. It's guys who have spent very little time with the team. But For your immaculate grid coming up, just a name to remember if you're looking for those sicko scores like Riley and I have been doing here. Let's get into the game recaps, though, of the Cincinnati Reds and talk about what happened here. In game 1 of this series, the Blue Jays were locked in a pitcher's duel. Jose Barrios spent 5 2/3, only gave up 1 hit, did walk 4, though, with 8 strikeouts. The bullpen pitched pretty solid behind him, but they were matched up against Brett Kennedy, who, Riley, you said earlier, thought pitched pretty well. He did pitch pretty well, but it's a guy the Blue Jays really should have hit, and they did not in this series. The game was scoreless all the way up until the 9th when Jordan Hicks gave up a home run on a curveball to young rookie Christian Encarnacion Strand. The Blue Jays lose this game 1-0. Blue Jays only had 3 hits. Brandon Belt was the only Blue Jay to reach base twice. Whit Merrifield had a hit, and Dalton Varsho had a hit in the losing effort as well. Game 2, though, the Blue Jays really needed a win, and they were in a back and forth affair with the Cincinnati Reds. The game stayed scoreless until the 4th when the Blue Jays put up 3 runs in this one. Thank you to a Dalton Varsho single, a Whit Merrifield single, and a Bo Bichette single, but it was given up right back in the bottom half as TJ Friedel hit a home run, and the most exciting player in baseball, Ellie De La Cruz, hit a triple to the gap, and then would end up later scoring when Kevin Biggio overthrew the second baseman. But thank God our mustache guy himself, Davis Schneider, prevented the shutdown inning, hit a home run, and the bullpen shut the door down from there, not giving up another run and allowing the Blue Jays win in what really was a back and forth battle. In game 3 of this series, the bats finally woke up. Hunter Green came off the IL for the Cincinnati Reds, and he was throwing up meatballs to the Toronto Blue Jays. They win this game 10-3. The Jays hit 5 home runs in this one. Brandon Belt had a double dong. Bo Bichette hit one as well. George Springer had a home run, and Kevin Kiermaier had a home run as well. And all the way there. Bowden Francis worked 3 innings pitching in high leverage at relief to get the save, getting him 4 strikeouts. And Hyun-Jin Ryu, Riley, on his 4th start back, had his 3rd start in a row without allowing an earned run. 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. So after the series, Riley, the Blue Jays stand with a record of 69-56. We are 8.5 games back of Baltimore in the AL East and still half a game back of Seattle in that final wildcard spot, but only 1 game back of Houston as well, with still quite a bit of baseball to be played, Riley. So a lot of big storylines coming out of the series. What's going first?
I want to talk about a really interesting play. First of all, we'll talk about our pitchers after because each one of those starters could have got a thumbs up. I want to talk about a play at the plate, like a savvy plate appearance by one of the best, who made a real nice bunt. And you know, in the terms of baseball, you know, a runner on first and second usually, you know, calls for a sacrifice bunt. Dalton Varsho basically had a perfect squeeze bunt. We've seen down the third baseline. We've seen Varsho bunt his way on, using the right side of the infield. However, this was, you know, if he squared, you could call the sacrifice bunt. This was in no way, the intent was not a sacrifice bunt. The third baseman was playing him quite back, and I thought he made a tremendous stab at the ball to lay that one down, basically in no man's land. When you put the ball in the Bermuda Triangle of the pitcher's rubber home plate and third, like, it's really tough for the pitcher to field that. Usually the third baseman be playing and making that play, but he was playing too far back. That's good IQ from Dalton Varsho. He had a hit in every single one of these games.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he drew 2 walks, Jesse, in the finale, which is something that is good for Dalton Varsho because he didn't steal in this series, but he is a fast base runner. So to have that in the pitcher's mind, to have Dalton Varsho on base, there's always, you know, the threat to steal. I'm really high still on Dalton Varsho. Jesse, you keep reminding me it's his first year in Toronto. Sometimes players take a minute to sink in, especially young players. Okay, fine. Yeah,
especially changing leagues too, from the National League to the American League. Yeah,
for sure, Jesse. Absolutely. But it's more or less for Varsho to have a good series at a well-needed time. He was certainly instrumental in the Game 2 victory. So, I mean, hats off to him. We really needed the series win. I really hope to see more of those kind of approaches by Varsho. I mean, that's a rarity to get a bunt base hit like that. But it's still, hey, he's a toolsy guy, right? I mean, that's another one of his tools in his arsenal that he can use. And I just thought to start it off, it was a really interesting play. We'll have another interesting play to talk about here shortly. But that's the one interesting play of this series for sure. And I thought Varsho had a great series.
Yeah, not only that, Riley, he was getting hits off lefties too. Like you think he started 2 games against the lefties. He hit a big looping curveball, which is something Dalton Varsho had really struggled with. Riley, on his last 15 games, he's hitting 302, 348, 605. That's a 953 OPS, Riley. Not only could this could be his best season, he could really be a catalyst as this team goes on down the stretch. Riley, you remember when the Blue Jays acquired Dalton Varsho and we had the episode, we talked, well, he was really good in September of last year with Arizona, where he had 9 home runs and a 134 WRC plus. So I'm going to give you a true or false question here, Riley. Is Dalton Varsho going to go on a run like that this September, or is he going to go back to the guy he was for most of this season?
I mean, hey, let's see a WRC plus around 115.
Sure.
And I'll be super happy with that. If he's 15% better than league average, I think it's this much better. I think we need more. Earlier, he's got a lot of unique tools for this ball club. Being a left-handed bat, being a tremendous plus defensively, I would really just enjoy, and I think the team would really benefit from his success. I think that's a no-brainer with the speed he has on the base pass and in the field, and of course the power. The power is clearly there. And a savvy bunt as well. They're just all great tools to have for who's going to be a good ball player for this team.
Jays are going to need it, especially when we need an offensive thump. If Dalton Varsho can deliver some of that thump, it's going to be good, Riley. Let's talk about another player who delivered some offensive thump here. And Riley, Bichette is back, baby. I can't believe how much this team really did miss him when he was gone. He didn't play in game 1 of this series after he finished a 2-game rehab assignment with Buffalo, where he hit a home run down there. He hit really good. He came back with a bang, Riley. 3 hits in his 2 games, including a home run. And Riley, it is such a sigh of relief to see Bichette back hitting in this top of the lineup. Like, he is so good, and the team just seems to hit better when he is here. It really strengthens our lineup. He's our best player, plain and simple, Riley. And if the Blue Jays are going to make this run to move past Seattle, move past Houston to get into the playoffs, our best player is going to have to be our best player. And I'm so glad that Bichette is back, because the lineup just feels more complete when he is in it.
The lineup is certainly more complete. Jesse, it's kind of like this. Oh, Bo's not in the lineup. Let's all take a day off. And it's kind of like the same thing, like, shut up, my mom's calling, or quick, we got to clean up, my dad's home. Like, oh, shoot, Bo's back, guys. Better start hitting again. And
right.
And he basically started off his return with a ball that off the bat, I'm like, there's a double. It was a sharp hit ball. It went foul. But honestly, as soon as I saw that, I just thought, like, I've never felt more at ease watching a foul ball for this team, because certainly, Jesse, he's had some time off. He still leads his team with 18 home runs. Surely he's going to be the first to reach 20 for this ball club. And I mean, the extra base power. And I was trying to do some calculations a little bit ago. Like, there's a really good chance one day, Jesse, that Bichette has a season where he has like 70, 80 extra base hits.
Wow.
There's a really good chance of that. I know that seems like a ton, but because this is a guy who the power is there. And if he can turn those singles into doubles, like, he has tremendous off the barrel, like bat, like the exit velocity, like, it's just everything that's off his barrel. He can hit home runs to all fields. He can pull the ball well. He can slice the ball down, drop it in. Like, he can do it all at the plate. I love watching Bichette hit. Every Jays fan loves watching Bichette hit. I feel like his plate discipline has gotten significantly better.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and I feel like
pitches.
I know that, and the league's looking around, like, and looking at Bichette and the value of what this guy is. Like, he is a true superstar in this league, and he has become more of a complete ball player in 2023 than anyone previously. He is, as good as he started his stint with the Blue Jays, he has still improved so much in all aspects of the game. And it's just, hey, I'm just super happy to have Bichette back. And then we jumped on the Bichette train, and we decided to hit some home runs in game 3, and that was nice as well.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Glad to have Bichette back. Please stay healthy, Mr. Bichette. Moving on to another player, or the guy who was supposed to be the Toronto Blue Jays' best player this year, and that is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We've talked a lot about what is going on with this season. Why isn't he performing as well as we think he should be? And we'll touch more on that later. We want to highlight specifically, and you wanted to talk about his play he made at first base in game 1 of this series, where he had the fly ball and he let it drop and was able to turn a double play. Look, that was the reason the infield fly rule was invented, but there's not an infield fly with only a runner on first base and 1 out. Riley, I do want to say, when I first saw the play for the very first time, I wasn't convinced that he did it on purpose. I thought he just misread the ball and got it. But when you watch the replay, you can really tell. He's looking at the runner. He's looking at the ball. He pulls his glove down. He did that on purpose. 100 IQ play. You know, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., even though he might not be making the best swing decisions at the plate and the offense isn't where I want it to be, he is still a smart baseball player, and he proved that in game 1 of this series.
It's a play that if that listen, it's an interesting play, Jesse. I would be lying to you if I told you I'm a fan of that play. I'm a fan of the outcome of that play for the Blue Jays. But if I'm anyone else in the world and I'm not a Jays fan, or this happens, Joey Votto does that, or Spencer Steer does that, I'm losing my mind because it's because I'm not saying that play was, but if the shoe's on the other foot, I'm calling it Bush League. I'm calling it a mockery of the game. Yeah. Yes, Jesse, it's an extremely heads-up baseball play, but that is why this play will bump something back into a ball player. I can't remember who hit the pop-up, but that is why you run out balls. That is why you got to be running that ball. It's a short pop-up, because either way you spin it, whether that ball goes to first or second after, which it did, if that ball goes to second first, and then afterwards the ball is thrown to first, it's still a double play. So the baseball IQ was very, with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on that play. It's kind of like, oh God, I can't even think the Cleveland Indians baseball movie there. What the heck am I thinking? Major League. Yeah, it's like Major League. It's like, nice play, Mays. Don't ever do it again. Yeah. That's kind of where my head was at with that. But it's like, hey, the outcome is the most important thing, and it's extremely high IQ. But we're probably not going to do that too many times on the ball field. There was a lot of exciting plays in the series. As exciting as Cincinnati is, we can be very exciting too. So we'll leave it like that. We hope on a side note with Vladdy, he did drive a couple baseballs pretty hard. They did not go for extra bases. So he's still got a long ways to go, man, for this to work.
Yeah, he also left game 3 with an injury. We are still waiting for an update. The Blue Jays don't seem like it's super concerning, but it's something to monitor right now. This might be something he has to deal with for the rest of the season. So we need Vlad to be better at the plate. And if he's leaving with an injury, that is not ideal. Riley, before we move into some more of the negatives, including the team defense the Blue Jays had here, I want to talk about Davis Schneider, Riley. And look, he only played 1 game in this series. He struck out pretty badly in his first 2 at-bats, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, man, we got to talk about Davis Schneider. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he wasn't too hot. And then he hammers a curveball like almost 400 feet to left center field to give the Blue Jays the lead. I am on the bandwagon, or whatever you may call it, that I want Davis Schneider to play more. I want him in the lineup all the time. I get it. Biggio has played well, and I get it. Whit Merrifield plays the exact same positions, and you're not taking Whit Merrifield out of the lineup. But I want to find a way, whether it's getting someone into DH or whatever it may be, to get Davis Schneider into this lineup more, especially because the Blue Jays need more offensive thump, guys who really barrel the baseball, and Davis Schneider does just that. So I really want to see him in this lineup more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, he really gives me some Dan Uggla comp vibes.
Dan Uggla is a great comp.
Power, stocky kind of second baseman, and I like him there, Jesse. The problem is, like, that Biggio has been playing so well in the last little while that I really want Biggio in the lineup as well. And no question that Whit Merrifield batting leadoff for this team is probably one of the most beneficial things to this lineup right now.
Yeah, so you're not messing with that.
He's got on base. He got a hit every game. Well, I know he got on base every game. Whether he got a hit every game, that's besides the point. That he's doing what a leadoff hitter should do. So you're moving guys like Springer down in the lineup, and you're probably doing a little shuffle there with Varsho, and possibly your middle infield if Merrifield's in left field. You know what? I like that he hit that off a lefty. I think that shows like, hey, like what are the splits like? Let's look at David Schneider's splits. Like, oh, well, actually, in the first series, he actually hit really well off right-handers. Whether
Mhm.
that was lucky or whether that was, that was what he's designed. Because more often than not, Jesse, as it's not uncommon for a right-handed bat to hit better off of right-handed pitching. It's rare to see a left-hander anytime hit better off, a lefty pitcher. But for David Schneider's sake, I guess I'm kind of 50-50, man, because I really like Biggio in the lineup. But I do like what I see from a young second baseman. Like, I like, hey, when they're like, yeah, it's nice when we hit 5 home runs in a ball game. But when you're supplying the thump pretty much by yourself, I mean, it's almost a necessity. Had there been runners on base, we're talking a different ball game. It's less stressful than a one-run victory. But hey, we got a great closer. We shut the door. I'm with you. I would put him in, at least in every series, if not like he plays every series for sure, Jesse. No doubt in my mind, he's playing once every series, and I'd play him in 2 games out of 4 in a 4-game series.
See, I almost want him more than that. I want to see what the kid could do. If he can be an offensive piece, let him. Let him do the thing, but we'll see what John Schneider and the rest of the team decide to do after that. Riley, from some negatives that happened in this Blue Jays series, they did lose a game, and Jordan Hicks did give up a home run, but it was on a curveball, which, hey, will happen. But I think the biggest negative from this series was some of the team defense that the Toronto Blue Jays play. I know Matt Chapman threw a ball into center field after completing a relay throw, which allowed 2 runs to score. Kevin Biggio missed a cutoff man, which allowed Ellie De La Cruz to score off of Chris Bassett. Minor things, Riley, that, it didn't really affect the Blue Jays too much in this series as they won both games. They made those errors, but you want to see team defense get a little better, especially from Matt Chapman, Riley. Looking this up, he now has 10 errors on the season. I know his defense is still good if you look at like outs above average and all this stuff. He's not the platinum gold glover anymore, but he's good. He's still a good defender. It's just the errors seem odd from Matt Chapman. So do you have a thought about the team defense here?
Yeah, and there was another play Chapman made real quick. He just didn't get a handle on the ball. I think it was a hard hit ball down to third, and he just couldn't get a grip on it. Whether I don't know if they called that an infield hit or an error. Regardless, he did have. I mean, his error cost us 2 runs, man. You don't like if you're gonna throw a ball towards the outfield, you got to make dang sure. I mean, one of the saddest places to watch in baseball is when a catcher misses the throw down to first on like a dribbler or something like that.
This runs down there.
And this is kind of the same principle, Jesse. We got runners in scoring position. You're throwing the ball the opposite way of home plate. If you went the farther you're throwing the ball away from home plate when there's runners on second and third or first and third or whatever, like that's dangerous, man. You're just asking for it. Matt Chapman, he's better than that. Whether he just made the throw too quick. In my head, it's an ill-advised throw anyways. I'm pretty conservative defensively as far as a lot of things go. Eat that. Yes. Either way, there's not going to be a force on. I don't know how many outs there were in the inning anyways, but you can't have 2 runs scoring like that off an air. Yes, we picked up the victory, but however, I mean, one of those runs weren't earned on Bassett's line, and it's just too bad because we know how good of a defender Chapman is. Same with Biggio. I think people forget he plays a lot of different positions in the field. So, I mean, anytime he makes a mistake, you can say, and I'll make the argument and be on Biggio's side for this. The difference is Chapman's an everyday third baseman. Mm-hmm. He should know better. Biggio has bounced around a lot in his career with the Jays as far as where they placed him in the field. Second base, yes, is a very natural position to him, but I'll give Biggio a little more slack because he does bounce around, 100% more than Matt Chapman does.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything to be too worried about going forward. Sometimes, hey, errors happen. These guys play a lot of games. It's going to be a thing. Riley, to make room for Bichette on the roster, the Jays had to let go of Paul DeJong, a player they traded for 18 days ago, Riley. And I don't think either you or I imagined this was going to happen when this happened. I am surprised they went to DFA him instead of sending down Santiago Espinal, because Espinal has options, and the Blue Jays have always been really smart with asset management. But when you hit 087, 087, 087 with 3 singles and 44 at-bats, that'll probably do it. So Paul DeJong, 18 games as a Toronto Blue Jay, and yikes, so long. We hardly knew you, Mr. Paul DeJong.
Is this my first initial thought? It's not like he's a 27-year-old player getting cut. Is this going to basically be the demise of a Paul DeJong's career? Was my actual thought. It's, hey, he's still got a lot of ball left to play in him, but I mean, that's almost heartbreaking to go from pretty much an everyday shortstop to being DFA'd by a team that just traded for you, that wanted to use you as a toolsy guy who, yeah, maybe if you gave him more plate appearance, he'd be comfortable. He's an exceptional defender. It's tough to see. I'm a veterans type of guy. I like guys to have long careers, and a guy that's been a shortstop in the National League for so long that definitely will not make the Hall of Fame, but I would like to see maybe 2.2% of the votes go his way just for fun in the future. I think this maybe prevents something like that. I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. I don't know how much this is going to affect him in the down the road, next year or whatever. What it's gonna do. Maybe the Rockies pick him up or the Diamondbacks, and he remains back in the National League. But he definitely, that's a confidence deflator right there as far as what could go wrong for Paul DeJong.
Sometimes this happens. We've seen this with Brandon Drury, who just came to Toronto and just did not have it. Jonathan VR came to Toronto, just did not have it. And both of them have gone on other places and have actually been quite productive. My main takeaway from this, Riley, is when we play Immaculate Grid and Paul DeJong has a new career, we will remember the 18 games he played as a Toronto Blue Jay, and you can throw the Blue Jays in there for Paul DeJong. Some injury updates from the Toronto Blue Jays. Danny Jansen, Bichette, Trevor Richards, Kevin Kiermaier, and Matt Chapman are all back from their injuries. We mentioned Vladimir Guerrero Jr. already. He's been removed. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to need an IL trip. And George Springer has been dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, which could be kind of concerning from a 33-year-old. So keep an eye on that. I'd also expect to see Springer back in the lineup again, but he only played once in this series against Cincinnati. So we'll see if the off day today helps them and see how he does going into the next series. Anything to add there, Riley, before we get into the starting pitchers in this series?
No, let's roll right along and talk about, I've been excited to talk about these starting pitchers, man. Let's run right into that now.
Perfect. Main takeaway for me was Hyun-Jin Ryu, Riley, 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, no earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. The strikeouts were nice, Riley, because he had only averaged 3, 4, and 4. To get 7 in this game was nice. It's his 3rd start in a row, Riley, with no earned runs allowed, and the curveball was very nice. I think one of the reporters asked Hyun-Jin Ryu after the game if he had to grade his curveball out of a scale of 0 to 100. Should have been 20 to 80, but whatever. 0 to 100. He gave his curveball a 100 out of 100. Ryu thinks his curveball was perfect today, and I would have to almost agree, Riley. He got 7 swings, 3 riffs on the curveball, a 43% whiff pitch. That'll work. And only 4 walks and a 0.71 whip since he's been back. Hyun-Jin Ryu, my guy. This is fantastic and way more than what I thought we'd get from him.
This is exponentially more than I thought we'd get from Hyun-Jin Ryu. 5 innings, he did his job, get him out of the ball game, keep his arm healthy. We've already had scares with Hyun-Jin Ryu in the short time he's been back.
Yeah, we have.
If he's going to be good for us and we have a good lead, take him out of the ball game, get him the win. I think that's important. And I think that it speaks volumes that he thinks his curveball is at 100. Not going to disagree with that. If he was rocking the confidence, man, roll with that. Yeah. Because we've had a few hiccups this year with pitching, with starting pitching specifically, and we need that hole filled, to make this rotation deeper, essentially. And if Hyun-Jin Ryu is going to basically allow a base runner an inning and not surrender a run, I'm all for that. I'm all for that over 5 innings. If he has to go deeper into the ball game, and I hope that there's a time this season, over the next 2 or 3 starts, maybe we see him go 6 innings. I would really like to see that.
That's probably the next step for Ryu. Yep.
But let's not push it right now. It's still as good as he is, Jesse, as good as he has been, I should say. It's still kind of little bit timid around it. Let's take a few more little baby steps before we really let this guy, bark off and go deep into ball games that are, and basically in the 6th inning, and your starters now in a jam situation. And what we're going to do, can Hyunjin Ryu get out of that in a 2-run game? Things like that. He's been there before. We know what he can be like, but is Father Time and has the injuries hindered him in any way? Not so far. But we still got a long way to go and a few more Hyunjin Ryu starts, before things start to really break down and really matter.
He's giving the Blue Jays a chance to win every night, and that's all you can ask for out of Hyunjin Ryu. The other 2 starters in this series, Riley, Jose Barrios, 5 2/3 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, no earned runs, but 4 walks, but 8 strikeouts. I don't know what to make of that. I didn't like the walks, but the hit suppression is quite nice. I don't know. And then Chris Bassitt, Riley, just a typical Chris Bassitt start. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. He's actually had exactly 6 strikeouts in 5 straight starts now, which I think was wild. He did have that one bad inning, though, where he gave up the home run, the Elly De La Cruz triple. But other than that, he's been fantastic. He's been a very durable, solid number 3 starter, and I think exactly what we thought we'd get out of Chris Bassitt. So out of their 2 starts this series, Riley, what are your thoughts?
I thought Chris Bassitt did great. I'll start with that. Yeah. But I am not going to lie to you. I really enjoyed Jose Barrios' start. I know that 4 walks don't look pretty, but the strikeouts, the swing and miss, and the contact suppression were great. I mean, you can't do it all. You have velocity, control, and movement essentially as a pitcher, and it's kind of like, well, which one don't you have? And I mean, he didn't really have too much control. I still thought he made very competitive pitches. He got I'm not going to say he got very wild. He got a little bit wild, in the 3rd or 4th inning. But other than that, man, I thought his fastball was working. The slurve looked great. The sinker balls down in the zone looked great. I thought this was one of Jose Barrios' better starts, regardless of 4 walks. Jesse, I know that it doesn't look good, but anytime you go 5 2/3 and only allow 1 hit, like, there is something very good to take away from that. Yes, Jesse, ideally, and 8 strikeouts too for Barrios. We've seen Barrios pop off with strikeouts. I think 13 to be exact at one point. I think it might have been last season.
14 twice last year.
14 twice last season. Like, we've seen him pop off with strikeouts. Just one of those weird Barrios starts. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I absolutely loved it. It was a close ball game. I thought, our bats went cold against a guy who shouldn't have gone cold. I thought he more than deserved to win in this ball game, Jesse.
Yeah, and the thing I've talked about Barrios a lot is I wanted to see the ground balls come up, because his last 3 ones he wasn't getting ground balls, Riley. He had a 70% ground ball rate in this start. So 70% of the batters were hitting the ball into the ground. That's what I wanted to see from Jose Barrios in this start. Riley, down on the farm, there were some interesting things happening. Addison Barger has just been destroying baseballs lately. He went 2 for 4 on Friday, followed up with 3 for 4 on Saturday with a bunch of extra base hits, exit velocities off the chart. Worth knowing. Chad Dallas, Riley, is a name to know. He's been putting up some good starts together down in the lower levels of the minors. Just keep that name in the memory bank. Or Elvis Martinez, Riley, who's now in Buffalo and hit another home run this weekend, is now playing second base for this first time in his career. I thought that was interesting to see what the Blue Jays do with him there. So keep that in mind. And I got to talk Alek Manoah here, Riley. He still hasn't reported to Buffalo. Well, according to reports, he is still in Toronto. The Blue Jays are trying to get him some work on the side to work on his mechanics before getting him back on the mound. I don't know why he isn't going down there throwing more. Maybe the work he did in the Florida Complex League when he was down there, the Blue Jays aren't exactly satisfied with that. It's a big shocker there. But yeah, I don't know. Those 3 guys, those 3 names in the minors. And then do you have a take on Alek Manoah and what's the next steps with him?
So my take on Manoah, let's start with that, because when you hear something like that, it's a little bit of a cause for concern. I think the main goal should be, Jesse, to get Alek Manoah into ball games. And I think doing that at the AAA level is very important. I don't know what the Toronto Blue Jays have in store for him in the city, whatever work they have for him. I'm not going to say that that's the wrong thing to do, but I mean, you can do game simulations and this and that. But I think the only thing better than a game simulation is to go down
being in the game,
and
right?
pitch in a AAA ball game where you should be able to go 6 innings and maybe give up a base runner an inning and have like basically, like a strikeout an inning. It should be pretty even around the board at this point for Manoah. It should be. I'm not saying it will be. I'm not saying it is. But for Alek Manoah should at least be able to go 6 innings in a AAA ball game without, without a 5 ERA, without, a crazy amount of walks, and still with a decent amount of strikeouts. We're forgetting what success this guy had last year, and whatever turnabout kind of digression he's had. I mean, it can be fixed, and it's the best way to fix it, in my opinion. I'm not a pitcher. I'm not a pitching coach, but you would think it's pitching in a lower leverage, lower kind of caliber league down with the Bison. I mean, I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that, but get this guy more action, get him throwing pitches, because we've seen what he can do, and I think it's important that he still plays in baseball games.
Yeah, I mean, tell the guy what you want him to do, right? Maybe do one side session or one bullpen work with him showing that stuff, then see if you can execute it in a game. It's either a situation where Alek Manoah just simply doesn't want to do that, which I don't think is the case. I think he's listening to his coaches, and because obviously his coaches want him to succeed and he wants to succeed as well. You want to get the guy's confidence and the guy's swagger back, and the best way to do that is to get out there and to pitch well. Even if he goes down there and he's bad, there's no real consequence for this, right? Like, I don't know. The Blue Jays are handling him with baby gloves, and I'm getting major red flags from everything here with Alek Manoah. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of him in this offseason here, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot as we get into the offseason. Riley, I don't have anything else to add for this episode. Was there anything else you wanted to make sure we mentioned before we get out of here today?
No, just real quick to the Barger and Elvis Martinez thing. Like, good that they're playing well, because those are, some great prospects for us to have. Whether they'll be up this year or not, I'm doubtful that Elvis Martinez will be.
Barger
but there could be
I think so.
But you could. September's just around the corner, so there we could be seeing Addison Barger with the big club in September at some point. But hey. Let's quickly just touch on the impact of this next series, Jesse. I think that's important to note before we head out. This next upcoming series, man, if you got anything on that.
Baltimore. Now going to Camden Yards. Look, the Baltimore Orioles have played very well against the Blue Jays this year. We need to go out there and we need to play well against them. I can read off the probable pitchers if that will help. And, the Blue Jays have to play good baseball. Look, if we're going to be a playoff team, beat the teams that are already in the playoffs, It looks like, we got good starters. Kikuchi against Grayson Rodriguez, Kevin Gausman against Jack Flaherty, Jose Barrios against Dean Kramer. On paper, that seems like 2 out of 3, but the Blue Jays have lost a lot of games that on paper they should have won. So we'll have to wait and see. It'll be another stressful week for Blue Jays baseball.
Absolutely, man. And this is a series, Jesse, we cannot afford a sweep. That's plain and simple. Yeah. If I think I'm not going to call it right now. But I think, Jesse, if we get swept in this series, there's a better chance than what we're talking about today that we miss the postseason. I'm not saying it's 50-50. I'm not saying it's 60-40. I don't even have a number. But if we get swept in this series, Jesse, it's going to set us back 3 games. But it's going to feel like it set us back 10 games is what this is going to feel like. If we lose these 3 games, it's going to feel like we just lost 10 in a row. And it's going to look like that, the standings, with how the other teams are playing in the Central, in the West right now of the American League. If we come out of here with 2 wins, I'll be super happy. But I'm just saying, this is a series that we cannot afford to be swept in right now.
And let's go Boston. Let's beat Houston this weekend, and the White Sox. Let's go beat Seattle this week. That'll do it for episode here today, guys. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're trying to get that subscriber numbers up to 500. We are well on our way. So please, if you've come this far, come along a little further. Hang out with Riley and I as we get into the stretch run of the Toronto Blue Jays season. Until next time, guys, let's go Blue Jays, and we'll see you later this week.
Thanks, guys.